virtual public virtual public meeting chairs as of May 26, 2021. So this is new. Pursuant to recently adopted amendments to the Illinois Open Meetings Act included in Public Act 101-0640, public bodies may, in certain circumstances, hold entirely virtual public meetings without a quorum physically present in any one location. On April 30th, 2021, Governor Pritzker issued his most recent disaster proclamation and executive order 2021-09 that declared in-person attendance at public meetings of more than 10 people at the regular public meeting location to be infeasible in accordance with the Open Meetings Act as amended by Public Act 101-0460. On May 20th, 2021, Village President Howard J. Royne issued a declaration of emergency pursuant to the authority granted by the Village Code, the Illinois Municipal Code, and the Illinois Emergency Management Agency Act to address the health threat posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. On May 20th, 2021, President Royne executed a written determination that given the ongoing emergency associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, in-person meetings of the Board of Trustees are not practical or prudent. In accordance with the Governor's disaster proclamation, Village President Royne's declaration of emergency and President Royne's determination regarding meetings of the Board of Trustees, Village President Royne has also determined that in-person meetings of the Community Relations Forum are not practical or prudent at this time and until further notice. Accordingly, this meeting of the Community Relations Forum is being conducted virtually with members participating through the Zoom webinar platform. Assistant Village Manager Sharon Tanner is in the Village Hall conference room as required by the Open Meetings Act. Ooh, quite the mouthful. Did I say that Howard's last name right? How do you pronounce it? Rowan? Is that right?
Rowan.
Rowan?
Yep.
Darn it. All right, next recording will sound better. All right. So before we get started with our agenda, we have 3 new members on our forum. So welcome Vivek, Rafael, and John. And if we can just take a couple of minutes to do some introductions, that would be wonderful. This would be for existing forum members so that you 3 are acquainted, and also for the new forum members so that, you know, just a couple of lines, how long you've lived in Glencoe, maybe a couple of things you're passionate about in terms of DEI and what brought you to our forum. So left to right, Bob, would you like to go first?
I've been a resident of Glencoe for 39 years. For 37 or 38 of those years, I've served on one forum or caucus or another. And I welcome our new forum members. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Look forward to our conversations.
Great, thank you. So on my screen, I see next, so I'll just go next, and then that way we can just go through all the names. My name is Dipti Clark. I've been a resident of Glencoe for almost 3 years. I'm very, very passionate about DEI at work and outside of work. And I feel like Glencoe is a wonderful community. We have a really nice group of residents. We are trying to learn more through this forum on, you know, where we are with our initiatives with DEI, and I think there's always room to grow and always room to make it better and as welcoming as possible, not just to our residents, but our visitors. And of course, very excited about the new members joining. So we're always looking for ideas. So this is a place to really come up and, you know, see how we can make things better. Anise, you are next on my screen.
Hi, my name is Anise Moses. I was just calculating how long I've lived here. Well, my husband and I bought our house before we even got married, so I guess it's been 23 plus years. I grew up in Evanston, and that's a big part of my the way I kind of look at the world. And I ended up in Glencoe sort of randomly. But I have 4 kids, I have 4 dogs, I have fish, they're behind me. And I've been involved for well over 25 years, I guess, with the Englewood community. And I don't know, I have my hands in a lot of things, but I'm really excited that to see new faces, to have new perspectives, and to learn. I've learned a lot being a part of this. I got involved because of Maureen, who will introduce herself. She lives just a few doors down from me. And welcome.
Thank you, Anise. Hillary?
Hi, I'm Hillary Scott. I have been in Glencoe, depending on how you want to count, 10 or 40 years. My husband and I returned to Glencoe, where I was raised, in 2011, I guess. We have 2 boys, both in middle school. You might be able to hear one of them practicing his piano right now in the background. And I have been on the forum just close to a year now. I am really passionate about equity issues, particularly as it relates to child rights. That's sort of my work during the day. And really glad to have some new blood. So welcome.
Thank you. Margot?
Hi, everybody. I'm Margot, and I've been in Glencoe for 23 years, I think. And I'm happy to be on the Community Relations Forum and working on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Carrie Rubin?
I've been in Glencoe for 29 years. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, and I'm the liaison to this forum from the board. That's how I came to be on this committee, on this forum. However, we also have been addressing these issues for some time, and we'll continue to be addressing these issues for quite some time, no doubt, in the law firm. I'm a principal. That said, I am really happy to have all of you here with us today, and the new members as well as the continuing members. I'd use old blood, except mine's about the oldest on here. So, so in all seriousness, no pun intended, the more diversity within this group, the better, because it inevitably generates better ideas and policies. So I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. John?
Hi, everyone. My name's John Bjork. I've lived in Glencoe for just over 3 years. My wife and 2 daughters and I live just off of Old Green Bay on Lincoln Drive, across from Duke Park. So if you hear my two-year-old screaming, she's probably jumping in the splash pad as we speak. I was really interested in getting involved, I guess, generally with the village, and specifically this committee, based on kind of what I read about the goals and objectives of it. I come from grew up in a really small rural community in Michigan, and then lived in the city for about a decade, and found that the diversity of opinions, ideas, and people that I experienced in the city was really valuable to me, and something I also want to expose my children to. So I think the goals of this forum really kind of speak to my goals as a parent. So that was kind of what drew me to it, and look forward to working with you all and adding a perspective that hopefully adds some value.
Great. Welcome.
Thanks.
Sharon?
I'm happy to go toward the end after the forum members have introduced themselves. I will comment that we skipped over the roll call, but since everyone is identifying themselves here on the record, I think that's sufficient for identifying who's here for the meeting. So
Oh, thank you. I knew I missed something.
okay, that's okay. We were excited to meet one another. So
I know.
Carrie and Emily and I can go after the forum members.
Okay, Rafael.
Hi, name is Rafael Guzman. I lived in Glencoe. We moved here. So I was in fourth grade, is finishing freshman year, so about 5 years and 6 months. I'm married. I have 2 children, a freshman at New Trier, and my daughter, age-wise, is third grade, but her attitude, she's more like a 12-year-old. We moved from the city. My wife is from the Chicagoland area. I am not. I was born and raised in the Quad Cities, which is Moline, Illinois, smaller community. And when she said, "What about Glencoe?" I said, "Where is Glencoe?" I had absolutely no idea what Glencoe, where it was, or anything, but it was pleasantly wonderful community. I've been involved in. You may have heard me yell at Glencoe baseball games. I'm sorry. I've been a coach there for 4 years now, mainly boys. I took over softball, and for my daughter, and the girls are much more tolerable to coach. They're funner, but. I'm passionate about equal rights and about a community-based organization in which forum members have their voices heard. I was introduced to this forum by Dipti. She's the one that said, "Please listen on the meetings. I think you would enjoy it," and she was absolutely right. So I want to thank her for introduced me to the group, and so I wanted to say that I do look forward to working with everybody. And if I talk too much, I do apologize, but thank you.
Well, welcome. Maureen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maureen Valvasori. I am a lifelong resident of Glencoe. I'm not going to tell you how many years that is, because then you'll know how old I am. This is my second term on the forum, and I am the proud mom of an interracial family. So that's what initially brought me to the forum. But what keeps me is the wonderful members. It's been quite a year. We've been through a lot together, and it's just, been a great experience despite the challenge. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the new members. And I'm especially grateful because now that you're on board, we get to talk to more of each other. And if you haven't learned about that, you will. But it's just great to have you on board. We're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, Maureen. Vivek.
Hi, I'm Vivek Mali. I've lived in Glencoe now just about 10 years. I had no idea this forum existed until I ran into Reverend Gary a couple of times over the past year and interacted with him this past winter. And he's the one that told me about it, and he asked me to tune in to a meeting in January, which I did. And shortly thereafter, I saw the call to action from the village for a number of roles to volunteer for, and this was one of the forums that was on that call to action. And I think it's really cool and it's really important, and I don't know if a lot of people know about it. I didn't. I've lived here 10 years. I didn't even know it existed. I'm very passionate about community building. I have done that on my own through our own circles of friends within the community. We came here. My wife grew up here in the North Shore. I am originally from the Metro Detroit area, had no idea when I lived in the city what the North Shore was. And people asked me, "Do you know where you're moving?" When we said we're moving to the North Shore, I said, "Oh, we're moving by my in-laws." That was my response. And they said, "What's the school district?" And you go down answering these questions, which are pretty innocuous, but there is a stigma around the North Shore. Some really good, some I didn't know about and didn't really affect me. But then when you get here and you look for the community, and there's an established community, and it's been here for a very, very long time. And from my perspective, it was always the outside in. So I thought, and this is something that happened with my family growing up in Metro Detroit, you build your own community, right? And you build it within everyone around you. If you're not willing to do that, then you're always going to be sitting on the sidelines. So when I found out about this committee, or sorry, this forum, I thought, wow, this is pretty amazing. And as far as DEI, it comes part and parcel with building a community. I mean, if you don't have that, then you're by default you're excluding parts of your community. And then how do you build a community with, a robust community? So that's why I'm interested, and that's why I'm here. And I hope I can contribute. And just like John said, I hope I can add some value to the work that you all have been doing for a while. So thank you for letting me join.
Well, thank you, Vivek. I think the first step of joining itself is adding value. So we really appreciate you taking the step to come on board. Amy?
Yeah, hi, my name's Amy Micel, and I born and raised like several other people here, and then returned to raise my kids in Glencoe. So it's been a long stretch when you add them together. I'm deeply committed to the diversity objectives and inclusion, and just trying to make it an even more welcoming community, both for those who live here and everybody who works and visits. And so I'm passionate about the topic. I have had a long career in heading up human resources, so now I consult in that field. And obviously it's been things that I've worked on through work, but I've never done work in the community. I've only been on this committee for, I think is now coming up right about a year. So I'm a neophyte, and but it's been fascinating. I learn more than I can contribute, but I love being part of it and look forward to getting to know all of you. John is my neighbor. He lives where I was at Caddy Corner, so kind of right next door to the house I was born in. So I'm familiar with him, but other than that, I look forward to getting to know everybody and seeing where we can take this as a group together. So thanks.
Great. Thanks, Amy. All right. So between Sharon, Carrie, Emily, who'd like to go first? We don't want to leave you out. We want everyone to know who you are, because I think you're like key members.
I'll go first. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie Lewandowski. I'm the Public Safety Director here in Glencoe. I've been here for about 8 years, and I find value in being part of this group because our job, we are one of the most visible aspects of our local government, and our job is to make sure that we are doing things the right way to make sure that people feel welcome in Glencoe. So being part of this group keeps me, with my finger on the pulse of how we're doing in the community and what we can do better to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make Glencoe a very welcoming place. So thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Hi, I'm Sharon Tanner. I'm the Assistant Village Manager. I'm the staff liaison to the Community Relations Forum. I've been working with the village for about a little over 6 years now. Prior to that, worked in a couple of other municipalities in the northern suburbs. And so it's been wonderful to be here in Glencoe. Functionally, my job as the Assistant Village Manager, I oversee our human resource management function, work very closely with the village manager in each of our operating departments in the day-to-day operations of the village, work with our business community, work on public communications. So being your staff liaison is a very natural fit with some of my job responsibilities. And also one of the things that motivates me personally as a local government management professional, which is I want people to love their community, whether that's the community where they live, the community where they work, the community that they were born in, however you identify your community, I want you to love it. So that's kind of my personal motivation in this profession. I'm excited to get to know everyone, especially the new members, but I'm not going to have a great lot of time to get to know you. I'm going to be starting parental leave most likely later this month. My husband and I are expecting our first child. This is the strange thing about Zoom where you only see me from the shoulders up. So if we were in person, that would be probably more obvious than it is right now. But Carrie and Emily are going to be working with you in my absence, so we won't miss a beat, and I'll look forward to getting to know everyone as much as I can this month and whenever I'm back in about 3 months.
How exciting. Emily?
Yes, we're very excited for Sharon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We're good? Okay. Hi, welcome new members, and it's nice to see familiar faces. My name's Emily Spangler. I'm the administrative intern. I'm a graduate student at UIC. I'm studying public policy, specializing in transportation. I'm originally from Sterling, Illinois, which is right by the Quad Cities, Raphael. So pretty sure you passed through it, maybe. Yeah, not that exciting. Now I live in the city. I live in Pilsen, which is, for some, I guess to you guys, southwest part of the city. So yeah, grateful to be here. For me, this forum's really exciting. It's professionally very enthralling, if you will. I get to add it not only to my resume, not only looks good, but it is really important to be involved in a new community for me and to have new resources and perspectives. So I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Emily. We look forward to working with you as well, and you'll have plenty of things to add to your resume that looks good. We'll keep you busy. So thanks for stepping in and helping us out.
My pleasure, really.
And we're missing Reverend Gary today, but I think a lot of you probably know Reverend Gary. If not, you know, if you can just walk down maybe Center of Glencoe sometimes, or go to the St. Paul Church, you will be able to, you know, meet him. So, you know, I would say just go say hi. He's a great asset to our forum, but he's on vacation today, so he's not going to be able to join us. And he won't tell me where he is. I asked him if he was anywhere fun, so I'm guessing he doesn't want me to feel so bad. So now, do we still need to do the roll call, Sharon?
I think everyone identified themselves for the record, and you noted Reverend Gary's absence, so I'd say we covered it.
That's perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much. And we have a pretty packed agenda, but let's see if we can get through it quickly. Amy has a hard stop at 6, so anything that Amy has to cover, we'll probably try to get it done before. We obviously have to work through the ordinance, and thank you for sending in all your comments. And thank you, Sharon and Emily, for putting them all together and consolidating those. So we'll go through those. We hopefully should come to a consensus today. We are looking forward to a board meeting where we would like to present this ordinance. So if we can get this consensus today, I think we would be in good shape to present it at the next board meeting. So let's keep that as our goal. I also want to talk about our budget for next year, and I'd like to form a budget subcommittee. So, you know, I really want to go through what we want to do for the upcoming year, what plan we have, and what we may need in terms of budget, so we can put our proposal together again for the board meeting, so that we don't get left behind when they're determining the budget for the various committees. So, you know, so far we haven't really had any event where we've needed to use any of the funds, but we've just about started, you know, like our events have just about really taken traction. So let's form a subcommittee for the budgets, and I could use 2 members on the subcommittee, since we can't be more than 3. However, we can reach out individually to the other forum members and solicit information and gather ideas, so that everyone's involved, but the subcommittee would then only limit to 3 with the Open Meetings Act. So do I have any volunteers? John, was that like a?
Yeah, I'm happy to help. I may need a little guidance on the objective, but happy to serve on that.
Okay. So. Okay, great. And then we need another volunteer for the subcommittee. Gary Rubin, thank you. So Gary and John and I will touch base, and we'll figure out a plan for our subcommittee, and then we'll be reaching out to each of you to gather some more ideas and information, because we want to have some sort of a, if you may, a business plan for us so that we can have a budget identified and then present it to the board.
And Dipti, if I may, just for the good of the group, because this isn't a conversation that we've had previously, the Community Relations Forum, like our other boards and commissions, have budget dollars that are appropriated by the village board through our annual budget process. We're just starting to kick off that process now for our calendar year 2022 budget. And so this is a great time for us to start thinking about this. The boards and commissions budgets for purpose of organization of where they are in the document live in the village manager's office department, which is my department. So we'll work with the group on once we have a sense of what the budget request is and any preliminary feedback from the board, building that actually into the budget document. What's typically very helpful is to think about, as Dipti had alluded to, connecting a budget request to a work plan or to goals of the forum. And the group has done a great job of identifying a set of goals. So thinking about what sorts of initiatives or activities support those goals and what might the cost of that be. I'm happy to talk offline with the subcommittee to provide some additional information about process. Talk a little bit about scope of budget. As much as we would love a blank checkbook, we don't have one anywhere in the village. So we will be mindful of probably a ballpark that's a reasonable budget request to stay within. And I'm happy to talk offline with the subcommittee about that. But what we would look for is that being something that gets formulated and developed and vetted out over the next couple of months so that we can build it into our budget process. Fall timeframe is when we're going to be constructing the budget in earnest and preparing it for the village board's first review.
Thank you, Sharon, for that. That was a great summary. So yes, we will meet with you to go through some of the details with the processes as we get the process started. Any questions from anyone on the budget so far? I mean, we haven't really started working on it, but if anyone has any questions for Sharon. Okay. The next thing I wanted to quickly touch on was since we're 12 members now, which is a really nice thing, but we really don't have each other's contact information. So if you are willing to provide your name, address, phone number, or email, or both to Sharon or Emily, I guess at this point, Emily.
Yes, we have all of that on hand.
If you have a preferred method of contact, that would be good to let us know. Like if you prefer your cell phone versus your office versus your home phone or things like that, just let us know your preferred contact method. And then Emily can share that with the group so that we have a forum directory for each other's information. So that was the next thing I wanted to just quickly touch on. And then we can jump right into our agenda items. So the first thing I wanted to just quickly get an update on was our subcommittees. And Dipti, if I may, do you want to approve the meeting minutes?
Oh yes, of course. Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm just running ahead of myself today.
I know there's so many more exciting things to talk about than meeting minutes, so I understand.
The first item on the agenda is consideration of our May 26th, sorry, I just missed the date. May 26th meeting minutes. May I have a roll call vote?
I so move.
Second.
And then Emily, would you like to call the roll for the roll call vote?
Yes, I would. Okay. Chair Clark.
Yes.
Okay. Member York. Do I call it by each? Yeah, okay, sorry, we're gonna get this. Member York.
Should we vote even though we weren't members at the time? Is that?
Or is that not?
You can vote, or you can abstain from voting. Generally, if you've verified the accuracy of the minutes, then you can vote. If you haven't, you can abstain, whatever you prefer.
Okay, I suppose I'll abstain because I wasn't a part of them.
No worries. Member Flanagan,
Yes.
Member Gary is not here. Member Guzman,
Yes.
okay. Member Molly,
I'll abstain.
okay. Member Moses,
Yes.
yes. Member Meisel,
Yes.
okay. Member Rubin,
Yes.
Member Scott,
Yes.
okay. Member Valvasori. Is she here? She leave?
Yes.
Maureen?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hi, sorry. You were
delay.
lost on my screen. Thank you. Member Young,
Yes.
wonderful. Okay, they are approved.
That's great. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Now, this is the time in the meeting. If there is any public comment on something that is not on the agenda, I would like to ask Sharon or Emily to read any public comments that were submitted prior to the meeting. And after that, I will ask if any members of the public would like to comment on something that is not on the agenda. If you would like to make a comment about something that is on the agenda, let's hold the comment until later. If a member of the public would like to make a comment now on something that is not on the agenda, please press the raise hand button or *9 if you're joining by phone. The village's public comment rules limits comments to 3 minutes.
There were no comments submitted in advance of the meeting, and there are no hands raised or no members of the public here, so there are no comments.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that there are no members of the public here today. We usually have a few. Okay, now we can actually jump into our agenda or continue our agenda. So I would like to touch on the subcommittee quickly for getting to the sorry, I was muted by somebody. Oh, that's okay. So I was saying, I wanted to touch on our subcommittee for an update, a quick update. So Amy, can we have a quick update on our upcoming town hall? If you have made progress in terms of our panelists, and if we have a potential date, if you can just give an update. Thank you.
So I have a very brief update. Reverend Gary and I are working on this together. He is away, as you said. So he and I will be meeting next week on Tuesday, and we will work on all of that. So we have not, I think that the clergy is kind of that pending member because they were going to be with us the last town hall. So I'm assuming they will be on the list for the next one, but we haven't done the other groups. Welcome any ideas that anybody can send me in, between now and next week. And so he and I'll, I'm sure, have an update once we get that first meeting together. And I think we're going to do it in person, which is very exciting because I haven't met him before in person. So that'll be great.
That would be great. Thank you, Amy. I would also like to suggest if you would like to add a member to your subcommittee, this would be a great opportunity to solicit.
Yeah, so anybody, so what this is you may have heard the town hall event that we had, whatever it is now, a month and a half ago, where we invite either an organization or business within Glencoe to tell us a little bit about the way they see our village in the lens of diversity and inclusion. And so, welcome ideas, and, basically Dipti will moderate, I think, the event at the time, but we just need to think of who we might want to have a voice in that. Of course, everybody in the village can, and others can listen in and so forth. So you don't have to necessarily have the idea this minute, but you could think about it. And if you would like to be involved with Reverend Gary and myself, we would welcome the help and ideas and so forth. So please just, you can get in touch with me. You'll have the contact information shortly, or
you can raise your hand right now and join the subcommittee.
Yep.
I'll do it.
Great. Okay. Wonderful.
All right, which one was that? Because there were two hands.
Oh,
Sorry, not both.
No, he beat me. I feel like we're doing a game of Jeopardy or Family Feud. His hand was up. His hand was up first. Jack beat me.
Wine or what did you think? Yeah, or just
Raphael, if you want to do it, go for it.
No, I don't want to get the reputation of being a bully. By all means, it's all you.
All right.
there'll be other things, right? That'll be great.
Well, you know, we reach out to every member. So if you have ideas, you're pitching into this just as much as anybody else's. It's just that Amy's running this, and just a correction, I did moderate the first one. The second one, Amy's running, and she's going to moderate it. So
Good to know that. I actually nice news flash. Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, and then we're planning to have a town hall every 3 or 4 months. So I think, you know, this is really good opportunity. I think we're going to make it grow as we go forward. So that's wonderful. Anise, Maureen, Gary, any update on your subcommittee?
Should I explain what it is? Just
Yeah,
briefly?
just a little
Okay.
bit, just so our new members know what it is.
So we just started a subcommittee that is interviewing people that live and work in Glencoe. The idea behind it was to connect people in a divided time, find the small things that we can relate to one another. And, you know, it was especially, I don't know, prevalent during COVID, but also politically, racially, there were a lot of things going on. There are still a lot of things going on. So the idea was to get people's stories. And, you know, I'm a firm believer, and I think the people who are in the subcommittee also agree that, you know, stories build bridges to people and make connections. And so our first interview was with Margaret at, well, I still call it DJ's from back in the day, our little downtown grocery store. And I thought it was a really, it was a really great opportunity to get to know someone who was special, who had a really powerful story. That's online for us. What's it under again, Sharon? I forget. Getting to know the heart of Glencoe is the thing, but it was I forget what.
It's under the Community Relations Forum page of the website. And we've also been promoting it when we had that feature story first published. We promoted it on our weekly e-news, which I'll give a plug for if you don't already subscribe to that, subscribe, and our social media.
Yeah, and so we have another one that we're putting together now where I interviewed Oscar. I live on Jackson, and he's our mailman. And I'm not sure if he covers any of your guys' streets, but he's really a wonderful man who has a very interesting story. So they come out mid-month. Is it the 16th of the month? I think they all come out. But anyway, so I'm working on that now with Maureen and Gary as editors, and you know, because of COVID, I was just the only one interviewing them, but now that things are opening up, like I hope that we'll do some more interviewing together as a group. And if people have a penchant for writing or interviewing, you know, we'd love your help. I think the next person we need to interview is someone who lives here, because now we've interviewed 2 people who work here. So the other part that Maureen and Gary and I are asking for is if you guys know people who live and work in Glencoe who you think have a story that would be a bridge building opportunity, we would love to get their name and approach them. I don't know if I left anything out. I also tend to overtalk.
Fantastic.
Raphael, you and me, we can be friends.
All right, that's great. Thank you, Anise. Yes, looking forward to the next one. The next subcommittee, and Hillary, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you know, feel free if you have an update. If not, we'll take it to the next meeting.
Not much of an update, just an overview for our new members. We were tasked, Amy and Margot and I were tasked with sort of developing a landscape survey. The idea being that sort of using Amy's human resources background and experience in change management to sort of identify where we are as a community with regard to these issues. Where is the ground soft to advance the cause? Where are the folks who are probably not as easily persuaded? Similarly, who are the folks who don't need, any persuading? So I have not been doing any work on that actually, because I was finishing up my semester, but I've done that now. So we'll get back to it and have something good to report next time.
And I really liked the Writers Theater's approach that they had taken when they presented to us. So maybe that's something we can tap into and see how they went about it.
I think that's a great suggestion. I already reached out to Michael, so that would be great.
Excellent. Yeah, he's always ready to help. So I'm surprised he's not here as an attendee. All right, thank you very much. And that concludes our existing subcommittees. However, as we are thinking, coming up with ideas and developing new initiatives, we're going to have more subcommittees. The goal is you can be in as many subcommittees as you want, but the subcommittee is really just so 3 people can talk to each other. But we're all working together with the rest of the forum. Everyone's going to be reaching out, but it's just because we can't meet together like this outside of our regular meetings. We figured, how do we keep moving? So let's just make these subcommittees, and then we can individually, contact each other and get where we need to be. So, new members especially, keep those new ideas, fresh ideas. You always come in with such fresh ideas. Please make a note of it, share it. You're welcome to share it with me on email or with Sharon, who can then share it with everybody else. Or you're welcome to bring it up in our meetings. And I won't put you on the spot today, but maybe for our next meeting, we'll put that on the agenda and see if there are any new initiatives we want to start working on going forward for the rest of the year. So that is what I have for items. And now we can probably jump into the ordinance. Unless anybody else has something else to add, I might have missed anything. Okay, I guess not. Sharon, would you mind sharing your screen with the consolidated? I really like the way you put that together in that one Word doc with just people's suggestions. So we could just probably go through it and hopefully have a consensus on those suggestions.
Sure, let me share my screen now. Sure, I'm sharing the correct document.
Oh, and I just wanted to ask, have our new members had a chance to read through the ordinance?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, I have.
Okay, and
Yes.
assuming if you haven't been able to provide any input, you may actually provide input today. So it would be very helpful.
So what I've done is consolidated feedback that we had gotten in advance. This isn't a line by line or word by word change, but it is intended to capture thematic changes or suggestions. What we had talked about last time was perhaps starting with the purposes and duties sections, thinking through whether this is an accurate reflection of what the forum is doing and will be doing into the future, whether it makes sense to just lump these together into one. Presently, they're 2 separate sections in the ordinance, and thinking through whether there are additions or changes here. I should stop and back up, forgive me, and just a little bit more context. The village's human relations ordinance is something that the village board has asked the forum to take a look at and provide feedback on. The ordinance was created and I think last substantively revised in the late 90s. There have been some incremental modifications to it since then, but this is our first kind of comprehensive review of it in quite some time. So it's very ripe for this group's discussion. The village board did ask this group in the springtime to provide some feedback. The forum itself doesn't adopt ordinances or amend ordinances. Only the village board has the legislative authority to do that. So that's why this group is making recommendations to the village board. And so the ordinance as it is drafted today really has two distinct parts. One is an articulation of a public policy statement with regards to the village's stance on anti-discrimination and inclusivity. The group tackled that part of it over the last couple of meetings. The second part, which we're diving into today, is more of the structure, function, and format of this body, the Community Relations Forum. And so that's why we're zeroing in on these sections today. Staff is suggesting that we separate out this section of the ordinance and move it into a different section of the municipal code. That's more of a housekeeping change than anything. This group is going to be focused more on the substance and the content. So I appreciate you giving me a moment to just provide that bit of context. But diving into each of these sections, again, my recommendation was to start with the purposes section and the duties section, and thinking about whether, number one, does it make sense to smush these two together? Number two, does it feel right? Does it feel like what the group is doing and will be doing into the future? Or are there some changes that we want to make? So this was the group's feedback on that. It seemed like there was some feedback to consolidate it. A recommendation to add the word hate into articulating or reflecting the village's public policy against discrimination, bigotry, bias, or hate. I've underlined that since that's an addition in any form. There was a comment that the current language reflects the group's current and future work and a preference for a broad scope in the ordinance to allow flexibility to address DEI issues and other issues that may rise in the future. That was a bit of a discussion point at the last meeting as to whether this section should be more narrow to DEI type work, or perhaps DEI and others, and leave it a bit more broad. There may be other issues that this group is engaged in into the future. And then some wording changes that were suggested. So I'll stop talking and get out of the way here now.
I'm okay with all the changes. I just don't know when we say to address DEI issues and others that may arise in the future. And issues, again, I mean, I'm not sure we're really addressing issues. We are building a community, and we're kind of doing it through all these various programs or initiatives, or, you know, what we want to call it. So, you know, I don't know if it's DEI issues, or, so that's the only thing that I struggle with, is because we're an advisory committee to the board. We're not policing the community on anything, you know. We're here to listen and to take it forward to the board to see how it can be best addressed.
And that's a great point, Dipti. As I'd mentioned, this was a thematic summary. That isn't verbatim language that's in the ordinance, the word issues, but your point is a very good one, that it's broader than that. One thing I will point to is that in the last meeting, the group had, I'm going to change my screen share here. I'm going to see if I can toggle pretty quickly here. We're here in this section, and then I'll scroll down to the other one that we were talking about consolidating. In the last meeting, the group had talked about striking these three subparagraphs to leave it as this broader statement above. One of the suggestions was to leave in subparagraph C, but to eliminate the word residents. So it would include language that would read, support equal opportunities for Glencoe to grow, or maybe say all in Glencoe to grow, participate, and share in our economic, educational, recreational, political, and cultural and social activities.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that. It's inclusive. I just don't know how educational we can share, but because they can't really go to our schools and stuff like that, right?
Frankly, we're not public policy makers with regards to the schools, nor do we have authority over enrollment rules. I'd be getting out over my skis far too quickly if I attempted to speak about what the enrollment rules are for out-of-district individuals.
No, what I mean is when it says educational, what is it addressing? What piece would it address?
Well, educational could mean formal education. It could mean community-based education. It could mean a variety of things, I suppose. If the group doesn't want to include that word, you certainly don't have to.
I think that paragraph does reflect what the Human or Community Relations Forum does and has done in the past. And I think as far as the educational aspect of it, you know, we may be charged with educating our community on how to get involved in the village, how to participate in village committees, what village committees there are, what they do, how to participate in, how to go to a village meeting, how to be present at, a resident mentioned to me a few years ago that people were unaware that they could attend village meetings, and that sort of educational information to provide for our residents and non.
When you take out the word resident, you know, it does put all of those things. We can't make everything available to anybody who just chooses, say, to come and take advantage of the park district. I mean, they can as a non-resident and things like that. So I don't know if, as much as I said I liked it, now I realize kind of the implications to all the other pieces. Maybe that, maybe we need it in there so that we aren't out over our skis.
Maybe instead of educational, we could say informational. It's a lot of AL things, but economic, informational,
Well,
public, recreational, political, cultural, and social activities.
what if we just say cultural and social, or recreational, cultural, and social? I mean, again, I struggle. I'm not sure like what economic activities people would, like,
Yeah,
for example, like, are we saying,
Shop.
okay.
that's a good thing to do.
Support our local businesses? Okay. Yeah, I don't want to spend so much time on this, but it's just, I mean, it makes sense for all of that for residents, but I don't know for visitors if it makes sense for all of these things. I mean,
You could say visitors as appropriate, as applicable or something, and then not have to sit and.
I think we have to be careful when proposing draft ordinances. Think about proposing draft legislation, if you will, even though this is aspirational almost. That we do have to be careful and choose the words carefully, and see if, number one, any of this is duplicative with what were said elsewhere, or if some of this language might be added elsewhere, because it's not that any of these, you know, are inappropriate goals or inappropriate. It's just that as soon as you start to get this long list of details, you suddenly start to think of all the issues that come up with a particular turn of phrase.
Yeah.
And it can get tricky very quickly, is all I'm saying. So these concepts might better be addressed. Again, I don't know if folks prefer, you know, matter of style almost, whether or not you have the purposes and the duties and functions put together as one. I kind of like that frankly, because I think that one leads to the next, as opposed to have them separated by the technical, more technical aspects of this. That the two of those paragraphs ought to be together either as one or at least immediately following each other, and that we put these concepts, to the extent they're missing, into what is now duties and functions. And again, sorry, I'm also of the mouth running amok club. Apologize.
Well, you are a lawyer. You're definitely looking at it from that perspective, which we appreciate, because I have totally none of that background.
So can I ask a question? Gary, is your concern that when you start adding all of those types of activities in economic, educational, recreation, we're being too vague in what the purpose is for this forum is, or?
I guess on the one hand, you can step back and read it as, of course, just the beginning phrase. We support equal opportunities for everybody to do everything. In a sense, right? I mean, at its broadest concept. And so I don't have a problem with putting in this kind of broad language, including the word educational, et cetera. That's all fine. I don't think that means we're inherently suddenly impinging on the school board or the park district with recreational, et cetera. Again, I think it's part of being a welcoming and genuinely inclusive community. So
what about qualifying it, saying, adding that qualifier that this forum provides advice and guidance in order to support those types of activities, right?
Well, again, for the same reason I was I think I was the person that really wanted to nix this provision where it was and what it laid out originally, because I didn't think it actually matched what our forum was doing or likely to do. I don't think on our own initiative we're providing advice and guidance to the school district. We are supporting. We are, we're playing a slightly different role. We're technically doing that which the board or the village president asks of us, for example, to deal with us, this tricky issue of what would a modern, up-to-date human relations ordinance look like. No easy task, just by the amount of time spent on it over the last several meetings. And then go back to the Board of Trustees and propose something for their consideration. And other tasks. That's one thing we do. But then we do things of our own initiative as well, such as the forum that was just hosted so successfully. There are, and there's other things that these, that the folks that are on this call right now are going to be coming up with in terms of initiatives. So it's a variety of things, which I want to keep broad, but I don't want to put something down that we're not going to do. And that's why I'm being kind of picky, to be perfectly blunt, about the language.
So let me ask it a different way. If it's not there, are we missing something? If it's not,
that's a great question.
If it's not there, I mean, to take off you said that you wanted to take it out altogether. So when you said that, I thought, well, where does that leave us? Are we missing something if it's not there? If it's not there and we're not missing something, then what's the purpose of having it there?
And maybe it goes into the concept of, in the same way, sorry, let me get my thought together here. In the same way for duties and functions, if you scroll down later, I just printed the page, what's now 146.5 duties and functions. clause B, where, for example, it says provide a public forum for community relations issues, maybe issues and initiatives both. And then in C, it talks about enlisting the aid, consult with. Maybe that's where the concept of and providing support to, right, the other organizations that are there, which again, there's the overlap and the goal is set forth in that clause. And maybe that's how we get to that concept that's not otherwise perhaps adequately expressed.
Right, so if you take B and C, I think you get to the same place in what that language that begins support equal opportunities is trying to say.
Yep. And actually C is very, very, and maybe needs some language change, but it's very true compared to what we have been doing so far, creating a dialogue within our community amongst all the organizations, educating our public with bringing these organizations in front of them to speak about their initiatives and how they're working in the DEI field. And so I feel like we're kind of already doing that. It may just need some wording adjustment here and there to just reflect exactly. But yeah, I would think that B and C does cover that part of the one we're in question.
And so I'm clear, are we talking about
Yes.
B and C here that I've highlighted on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And if I may, I'd like to toggle to just one other document that this group previously worked on, which was your mission statement and your overall goal and your goals. Just listening to the dialogue, I wonder if some of the language that this group has already crafted could find its way into the ordinance as a summary of what has been discussed. It certainly doesn't have to, but it was just, as I'm sitting here listening, these are some of the things that came to mind. Particularly this overall goal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with that. We've already crafted that and come to a consensus on that.
I agree. I wonder if that could perhaps take the place of this that I've just highlighted, which was previously subparagraph C. It does try to get at that. But again, I don't want to drive this discussion, but I just wanted to offer that as food for thought, since it's something that this group worked on a while ago and has shared with the board.
And it's actually quite true, because we do facilitate the dialogue in the community with all of these cultural, civic, government, faith-based organizations. So, and we do have the plan. We don't have any right now, but we do have the plan of having some of our actions and future initiatives coming out of these dialogue with those organizations. So I'm actually good with the wording. I don't know what others think.
And it also avoids the resident versus, people who work here, whatever. It's just silent to who, but in fact, again, more inclusive overall. So maybe it does meet those needs.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I'll go over and suggest, if the group likes it, would you want to place that statement here? I've reworded it ever so slightly, so it's more in line with how the ordinance itself is worded.
Well, then we probably don't need point C in green.
This one here?
Mm. And point C on top either, the one that one, yeah.
And I would, if we're going to have a lead-in of functions and duties, then I would put the new language underneath the lead-in. Otherwise, we can just, you could rewrite it to not have that lead-in, whichever looks nicer, as long as we get to the same substance.
Something like this, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
I'll clean up the matting later.
And
And
if
by
we
the
can-
way, issues where we've said issues, somebody had put in a comment, not I, that issues, I thought they said, well, more like initiatives, and I think it's actually both. And I like the concept of initiatives in particular. It's the right emphasis. They both are, in my mind. I would have them both, personally. And again, you know, I am one voice now of 12, but I apologize for speaking more than 12. So the fact that I talk a lot, please don't let that sway anyone.
That's okay, Gary. You're going to be in that Board of Trustees meeting as a member. So we'll just say Gary agreed with it. Gary put that in.
That's true. I will be a proponent of what this committee, I'm a team player. I do believe in, you know, everybody getting behind the group of goals and moving forward.
All jokes apart, though, I really would like to see if anybody doesn't agree, especially with what's being talked about here, you know, let's just hash it out. One of the things I also wondering if we want to change everything that says human relations, because I mean, it's like human remains. I don't know why I think of human relations as like human. I don't know. It's just, we want to call it what our forum is, you know, so if we're going to be community relations, we want to call it community relations everywhere, wherever it addresses human relations.
Any idea why that phrase is in there instead of community relations?
It's the original name of this group, which arose from this human relations ordinance.
Okay.
I think it's how it was codified in the beginning.
Okay.
And which isn't to say that it must remain so. It is a more common, one of the more common, not, I don't know if it's the prevalent, but it's a more common descriptor for similar ordinances or public bodies and other communities. That gets into the naming discussion, which I'm hoping we can save for the end, or whenever you would like to talk about it. But
So, I mean, seems pretty clunky to me, human relations. I mean, definitely seems like it's like boilerplate trying to be, you know, I don't know. I don't like the word human relations. I mean, it's just, especially for building in community building, and community relations, that's just personal. It seems very, very sterile, if you will. I mean, that's my opinion.
I tend to agree. I feel like community relations fits better. Human relations to me seems like something you would say in connection with some sort of global, global committee that's larger than a kind of a community focused forum like I understand this to be. So I agree.
Sharon, if you, I know, have taken a look at these types of ordinances surrounding communities, what is the more modern version, or are they still using the same terminology?
it's a bit of a mixed bag. Some do use human relations, some use other terminology. Some communities have different functions and different public policies that are articulated within their ordinance that they may call their human relations ordinance or their anti-discrimination ordinance or something else like that. It really is unique to the community, but this is some of the more common nomenclature. Think other terms that are more common, things like inclusive, inclusion, anti-discrimination. Some of those, some anti-discrimination policies are more specific to certain regulatory functions, for example, in a municipality or a city, typically in much larger cities than Glencoe. So it really is a mix. Community building, community relations. Community relations could be something, if this group likes that, it's part of the current name. Back a few years ago, and I'm drawing a blank on the precise year, this group was renamed from the Human Relations Forum to the Community Relations Forum, as the group's role was broadened from not just human relations issues to broader community relations issues or community topics of interest. That's why that name was changed. I believe at the time there was some question or some dialogue about just community relations. Does that sound more PR oriented, more public relations, kind of communications oriented or not? That predated my tenure with the village, so I can't speak to that firsthand.
Raphael has his hand up. You just have to jump in.
Oh, sorry. What up, instead of saying human relations, we put, for instance, act in advisory capacity of the village president and board on trustees on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. I mean, we're considering DEI as a title. I mean, that's pretty much all encompassing of what I think we're trying to incorporate or interpret what human relations means as a suggestion. Because, I mean, first of all, there's way too many lawyers on this forum, so it's like, if we're gonna nitpick terms and words, and it doesn't include X, it does include Y. I mean, it's always what the legislature intended. So if DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that pretty much is a gambit of several different issues in 3 words. It doesn't sound as cold as human. I don't know if anyone else has an opinion or something along those lines, maybe, which would make everyone feel more accepting of our role, I guess.
Let me ask you a question, Raphael. So if it's community relations and we're saying the foundation of that is the DEI, right? When you just say DEI, are we leaving anything out? And I don't know if we are, if you just replace the human relations with DEI, because if the foundation of the community is about these concepts of diversity, equity, and inclusion, then I think you cover it. I mean, again, I don't know who drafted it. I'm a lawyer. I draft things that people throw up all day long. They say, I don't like that either. So I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying that, I just think human relations is clunky. I agree with Dipti. Like when I read that, it's just like, what is it? I don't know what that is.
And I would agree. And that's the thing. Whenever you draft an ordinance, you have to give enough specificity so there isn't room for ambiguity. So right. if we say, if you do use the language as diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's specific enough, but it's also all encompassing. I think the same way that the term human relations was intended to be. To your point, someone could read this and say, what does human relations mean? Does that mean someone being rude? I mean, the point of the form and of the ordinance is to be as inclusive as possible. And off the top of my head, I can't think of a phrase or a term that could be specific, but also be inclusive as the term DEI. Unless someone else has another, I mean, I can pull up my phone and check on Google, but I mean, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know what else I could bring in.
I'm in complete agreement with Raphael, actually, and think that, for example, in clause B, if we said to provide a public forum, I'm just trying to out the phrase, provide a public forum for diversity, equity, and inclusion issues and initiatives, or the discussion, we can put some other words in there to go with it, but if you're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion issues and initiatives, that seems in a nutshell to hit what it is we're trying to do. And now you can talk about discussion, support, figure out the rest of the words that go with that. But I like where Raphael has gone.
Me too. And I think it's a really big umbrella, and it just covers everything that we want to do in the community.
Pardon me, I just wanted to say, and I agree that it also, though, it puts a parameter around things that we're not doing that I think this forum by another name used to do in years gone by. That is not the goal of the current forum. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I'm in agreement of that as well. I mean, obviously, if somebody's having a fight with their neighbor, they're not going to call on us, and we're not going to go there and help them, dissolve that. We'll be calling Carrie. That was a joke. We would not be calling Carrie. All right, sounds like we have a agreement.
I'm just going to highlight this so I remind myself to carry this change throughout rather than wasting the group's time searching and replacing.
Sounds good.
Okay. Do you want to move into some of the other sections, or do you want to stay in this section? I don't want to rush the group at all.
Well, what else is in this section? There's C and then D. That's it?
Mm-hmm. One comment this group has talked about several times is this notion of practices of unlawful discrimination. Dipti alluded to this earlier, and we've had conversations in the past that the village is not a regulatory agency in this regard. We're not the EEOC, we're not the Illinois Department of Human Rights. So whether this is something that you would like to keep in or not is entirely up to you. I would suggest considering whether it's reflective of the group's intended purpose moving forward. That's not to say you couldn't bring in speakers who speak about these topics, but this group itself is not a regulatory agency.
And it's far too limiting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In my view.
Yep. And a lot of that is covered in point C. If we're facilitating community dialogue, to me, that is an educational program in some way. Yeah, I think we could even get rid of the full, like, provide educational programs, that whole sentence, and maybe just begin D with conduct public meetings to aid in, I mean, when they say conduct public meetings, we're talking about like meetings like what we have on a monthly basis, like this meeting.
This is certainly an example of public meetings. You could certainly have a meeting on a special topic, bring in a speaker, things like that. Much like the town halls, that's a public meeting.
So how about we add to C to say that encourage the community and members to engage actively in our forum meetings or scheduled meetings or something like that.
What if we do this? Tacking on and promoting public participation in. to this.
And participation and community dialogue, or in community dialogue?
In participation in dialogue. Or it could be at. Okay.
That's good. That sounds good, actually. So that covers, public meetings and the whole thing about alleviating discrimination, bias, all that. We've already put all those words ahead of all of this section, so all that can just go.
The subparagraph D.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think we can just remove it. Keep it as consolidated as possible.
Are there other aspects of this section that the group would like to talk about? To another section? I don't miss you.
I'm good with it. Everybody else good with it? I see a couple nods. I can't see everyone on the screen though.
If I toggle back to the consolidated feedback document, organization and membership is a section. By way of background, the village board appoints the village president, with the advice and consent of the village board, appoints members to the community relations forum as they do to any other advisory body in the village, be it the plan commission, the zoning board, the sustainability task force, or this group, or any of our other groups. This section of the ordinance provides guidance to the village board as to the length of terms, whether there are term limits in the appointment and removal process. Some of the feedback was around the membership should reflect the diversity of the community, the possibility of including non-residents as members of the forum or of this group, and then capping the membership at 12 with an ideal range of 10 to 12. If I could offer just a few thoughts on that from a staff perspective, or just from an ordinance constructive perspective, some of these, the first point I think is a good aspirational statement, but it may be very difficult to put into practice. What does that mean? Does that mean that we should be looking at census data of how many women, how many men live in the community, age distribution of the community, racial composition of the community, and then apply those same ratios to the forum? I think it's a great aspirational statement, but I would just offer that to the group as that may be a bit more challenging to implement in practice.
We can speak to this in terms of maybe more of encouraging, a diverse group of the forum, or encouraging a diversity, because really it's not up to us. It's whoever wants to join the forum, right? We're not going out there.
Right.
Recording in progress.
Sorry, what?
I'm not sure if that might have been some background noise.
So like I was saying, I'm not sure like we can go out there and solicit a particular person who fits a certain profile and say, hey, come join our forum because we're looking for diversity. I mean, that's not the idea. Again, it's all about inclusion, but also we want, if people are coming to us to say we want to join. So, I mean, I don't know if it should reflect. Yes, of course, we would encourage. Maybe we just change that wording a little bit. And where would this be? It would be part of the membership?
It's in the organization and membership, and I'll toggle back over. There is some language that alludes to this. The village president, and I'm going to highlight my paragraph just to make it a little easier to spot on the screen. Village president and board of trustees and appointing members to the forum shall take into account benefits to the village and its residents of having members who reflect the diversity of the village community and whose training, interest, background, or experience will aid the forum in its work. That is a slightly different statement than the forum should reflect the diversity of the community. I think it may hit on some of these points that we're addressing now in this dialogue. So I wanted to point that out as a distinction, and I'm not advocating for one or another, but rather trying to point out kind of when the rubber meets the road, how does the ordinance get implemented? And try to avoid any potential, or try to avoid potential unintended consequences.
I mean, is the way it's worded right now, is that not I'm okay with the way it's worded right now. Maybe we can say that we want to encourage, or I mean,
does anyone think that as currently worded, it doesn't say what you want it to say? I don't know who made the specific comment, and I don't want to put everybody on the spot, but is the language as is sufficient or not? Because otherwise, hearing none, I think maybe to Raphael's point, you know, this is one of those, how we say this exactly. I think people get the idea. This is, after all, when you look at the purposes of the forum, et cetera, people get it.
Yeah, I think actually as worded, it may be stronger than the edit. It's the shall take into account. So if the goal is to encourage diversity on the forum, I think this does it. The current language.
I'm not hearing a no.
Silence is acquiescence, right?
Yeah, I would just go with what's there then, if nobody disagrees.
So some of the other points of feedback and membership was related to the possibility of non-residents becoming members. I think at the last meeting I had shared that in all of our other boards and commissions, residents are the only individuals who are appointed. I don't know that that's not to say, or that is to say that non-residents cannot, and I'm sorry for all the double negatives here. But that is a common practice. We could certainly, if this was the intent of the group or a desire of the group, we can check into that to be sure that that's something that can be done. Some of our other groups do have formal representatives from other units of government in Glencoe, such as the school district, the library, the park district. Why do I feel like I'm leaving one out? No, that's it. That's not something that this group has had in the past. Again, not to say that it can't in the future. It's also not a conversation that's been broached with those units of government. So I would not suggest binding those groups in this ordinance without having a dialogue with them first.
But we could keep it, I mean, I do like that idea if, you know, we can engage with non-residents because there's always a different perspective that comes from there. But maybe not as if there are like too many legal things to have them as a member of the forum, maybe in a consulting role or, you know, something like that, so that they're in a consulting role, they can attend meetings as a participant and, you know, like the Michael Halberstons of the world.
Right.
What's the Chamber of Commerce, what's their role in interacting with the village in this forum? I mean, that's really their group, right? That represents the businesses. I mean, maybe there's some participation by the chamber. They let them figure out who's going to interface with the village and with this community.
The chamber is a separate entity. They represent their members. Not all businesses are members of the chamber. The chamber is going through some changes and transitions of their own right now. So I wouldn't want to speak on their behalf or in any way bind them. But I think, Vivek, that's a great point, that is there an opportunity for members of the business community to be engaged regardless of chamber membership status?
Right, and I was just saying the chamber, but I'm saying rather than put it in here in this ordinance, maybe allude to this idea that this forum will engage with the chamber or whatever organization to get input from businesses who may not be residents, right? That way you avoid a lot of, what's the right word? Complication. But you still get the input. You're still building that community. You're still building that bridge without having to put it in this ordinance.
So just to give you a little bit of background, Vivek, we had a meeting with the businesses. Sharon actually facilitates a meeting with the businesses, and we presented a forum. Hillary and I were there to present the forum and what we are doing in the community and how we want to engage with them. And at that point, the chamber had interest in meeting with us and, you know, taking it forward. Unfortunately, like Sharon just mentioned, they are going through some changes, so that's kind of been put on hold, you know, until they have a new leader and have the chamber again, you know, active. So it's definitely something we want to do. It's on our radar. It's taken a pause. But is that something we want to specifically mention in the ordinance, or would that kind of be covered with the other organizations that we are closely working with? You know?
Right. No, I'm saying it's covered in that other organizations, right? So you don't necessarily have to include this idea or the concept of non-residents if it's already covered. And part of community building is maybe they need help. Maybe they need some guidance in saying, hey, you know what, build your analogous group to this group, right? This group represents our community, and to be a member, you have to be a resident, or you have to work within the village. So maybe they need some guidance on building that analogous group within the business community, and that interface is covered, as you said, Dipti. And maybe it's the initiative of this group to reach out to them when and if they can build an analogous group of members of the business community, because then our group that represents the village and represents residents can interface with that group. And that's really truly that bridge between the community, rather than put it in the ordinance and have this undefined idea of non-resident. Does non-resident mean someone from Bolingbrook can come and try to become a member and have no context or tie to a business here? Does it mean that my buddy that lives on Aurora can say, okay, you know, based on your ordinance, I'd like to apply to be a member of your community relations forum? No, I think if you say that, hey, you know what, chamber or whatever organization that arises from whatever is going on with them now, one of the things you should try to do is build some sort of forum amongst the businesses in Glencoe that will interface with this forum. So we start to build that community. And then eliminate the idea of non-resident completely in our ordinance. I mean, I just think it's too vague.
I think you just started your own subcommittee right now, Vivek.
Oh, did I?
Yes, you did. And you're welcome to pick your members, because I think you could be really great working with the businesses, because that is something that we want to start up on. So
Sure. But for the purposes of this, I don't think there's any need to include that ambiguous group.
I'm totally, I mean, I don't know what the rules are for the village, but I really feel like if you are a resident, that's good, it's there. I think we've beaten this, but whoever had that suggestion, probably, they have an argument for that. I think, let's hear it, because I don't know how others feel on the call here. Or was there a specific instance or a specific person in mind?
Yeah, I suggested the possibility of non-residents being appointed to the committee, and keeping in mind that my friend from Aurora could apply but would not likely be appointed by the village for having no reason to be on the committee. But I was thinking of Mike from Writers Theater, having long-term business owners that are vested in our village be a part of making this village more welcoming, which they can be by coming to meetings as non-residents. They can't speak. They can't participate in the committees. They can't do other things. And I just didn't see anything in any of the other village ordinances that would prevent a non-resident from being appointed if we were to find a reason to appoint one. It's not saying that we're going to go out looking for non-residents or strangers or people that are not vested in our community. It just was a thought.
I think,
and I was thinking about Michael when I made that suggestion.
I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, that vesting of interest in the community is really it. You can define it as non-resident being too broad, and saying business leaders operating within the village, not just business leaders, but other types of leaders operating within the village. But I think we cover that with clergy and some of the other organizations. If they're eligible to be members, then I don't think it excludes someone like Michael from being a member.
I think it does. He doesn't live in Glencoe, and our clergy member does in fact live in Glencoe.
Reverend Gary does.
But also it is covered when we're working with these organizations, and they do have the opportunity to attend our meetings, and they do have the opportunity to speak and provide ideas. And they do have the opportunity to work with us very closely on initiatives, because we do reach out to them, and we do solicit their ideas. So all that is kind of done, maybe it's not written down here, but we just seem to just do it. And so again, I feel like that's our goal, is engaging with all of the communities in Glencoe, including the businesses. So do we want to have them as a member? Because then we don't want to exclude one and include one, so.
I will only throw out one other consideration, which is we're right now at 12. And query with you expand the categories, characteristics, would you also increase the size?
Well, Gary, you'll have to start running the meetings.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking in more of a long term, because this is an ordinance which is meant to guide us going forward for who knows how long. As a member of this forum for a number of years, there have been times when we had difficulty finding members. And at that point, to open it up would have been beneficial, I think. And again, it's not to say, I think this is just giving them guidance on the selection of board members. Once we hit our number, we aren't looking for new members on this committee. And presumably the next term around, there would be new considerations.
Sharon, would it be feasible, again, would it breach any technical rules to indicate that those non-residents who otherwise, have an interest in the community through work or, however we want to describe that, could be considered by the board to be appointed as a member?
I've marked that as, or jotted that down in my notes as a follow-up item. We can certainly check in with the village attorney to be sure that there's not some sort of odd legal provision that we're just not aware of. But I think what would be helpful from this group is, barring any sort of prohibition of appointing non-residents, what is your perspective on it? So if we legally can, do you want to? And under what circumstances or in what format? Is it members of the business community? Is it an employee of a licensed Glencoe business? Is it anyone with a business interest in Glencoe, which could mean different things than a licensed Glencoe business? That kind of feedback would be helpful.
Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think it would be fair to just limit it to a business community or a licensed business or a member of a business. We would be completely going against our goal and our mission of being inclusive. We could have, just as an example, someone from another organization. I'll take Heroes as an example, and they are also working towards, of course, mostly with the school, but similar lines, and they might want to be a member of our forum, even if they don't reside here. And so are we going to turn them away, or are we going to accept that? So to me, it's a very fine line. And, maybe right now we're all in agreement on how this would work, but 10 years or 5 years even down the line, it may get out of hand, or people wouldn't know how to manage it. So really, in my opinion, I think we should keep the members to being residents. And if you would like to involve or others, we may have something in a consulting capacity or something like that. But that's just my opinion.
So we've heard a couple of different perspectives articulated. I think what would be helpful for us is to get a sense of the group's consensus around those two ideas about including non-residents or limiting membership to residents.
Because what is the goal to have non-residents as a member? What would be the goal that we are not already accomplishing by having them engaged or involved and reaching out to them? Right? That would be the question. What is it that it would actually accomplish that we're not already able to?
The only benefit of having an outside person, a non-resident, is if we need an expert opinion or an outside expert to come in and not necessarily be a vote, but to give a voice of an objective viewpoint or a thing of that nature. I don't think that person would become a member. It's very much like our city taxes. We're not going to ask someone who doesn't live in Glencoe, how should our city government spend the taxes within Glencoe? you have to be a resident. It's pretty, I've never heard of any outside board, or I'm sorry, any board or city council allowing a resident of a different city to be a member. I mean, city of Chicago, you can't even be a police officer or a fireman without living in the city limits. So to answer your question, Deputy, I don't see the benefit of an actual person being a member if they don't live in the community, aside from if the board, if us or the city council or the president is asking for such a person to come in to give their point of view in a particular topic. I think it's pretty cut and dry when it comes to it.
And we could invite them for that specific need when it arises, and
Correct.
they don't really have to be a member.
Correct.
And
It's like when we had that student from Georgetown, give her when you guys had the student from Georgetown come in and give her research on what she found about Glencoe's history. She provided unbelievable facts, gave a great opinion, what her research found, and we then took the discussion from there. I think it's very much applicable to what we're talking about now.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the one thing I would say, and you know, this is tricky. You know, Glencoe, one of the things that I struggle with is that Glencoe is a fairly homogenous community, and a lot of our diversity does come from people who are working here. And I don't know if it's enough for someone to just sort of like pop in as a consult about their lived experience as a minority working in Glencoe. I would like some more permanent voices around that, and certainly we're becoming more diverse as a group, but that's the one caveat or sort of the concern I have about people sort of just being a consult as opposed to being a regular participant around their lived experiences. I mean, there are a lot of people that live in Glencoe that don't work here, that, you know, go outside of our community and, you know, just reside here. So their lived experience is maybe going to be very different in Glencoe than someone who works in Glencoe and is a minority in Glencoe and has a minority experience working in Glencoe. Then just tossing that out there.
That's a great point, Denise. Actually, that's a really good point. But then again, to that point, how I feel is we have the forum. As a forum, it is really our job and our responsibility to engage those people and have them engaged in our meetings and have them participate and bring those ideas, bring those experiences to us. And so they can be about as engaged in this as each of the forum members are.
So let me just take off of that concept. Well, let's just pretend for a second that the organizations within the village, businesses, the theater, whatever they happen to be, they do have a group. What about saying whatever organized group that is, however it looks, that they one representative from that group could be a member, some concept like that. So they would have to organize, get themselves together, figure out, hey, you know what, we want one person to be our liaison on the community relations forum. And if they don't get to that point, then there's no ambiguity in this idea of non-resident, right? They organize, figure out who might be the right person to represent them, whether it's Michael Halberstam or whoever it is, to represent that entire interest of all of the businesses, organizations, non-residents, whether they're minority or not, in that community, because it's a sub-community of Glencoe, right? But I don't know if it's our purpose and our objective to organize that and say, okay, yeah, now we want 1 non-resident or 10 non-resident members in this forum.
And that's where the chamber would come into place, right?
Yeah,
for example, or the clergy association.
Community to come up with that, and then maybe this forum and the village says, yeah, we would like a representative from that organization or that group. But absent that, we're talking, I said somebody from Aurora, and I didn't realize Margot was talking about Michael, right? That's very different. Those are two very different perspectives. As Michael, he's active in the community. He's a huge part of the community.
And actually, I think Michael might be a really bad example for this, because Michael is a part of our forum meeting he's only missed a few. So I think he's very engaged in it.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying that what I was thinking in my earlier comments were based on this idea of a non-resident being truly a non-resident has nothing to do with the community, whereas you have other people that are actually here that are non-residents, and not necessarily Michael, that if they were to come together and say, yeah, you know what, we would like some representation. We're not residents. We can't be on the committee or the forum as the ordinance says today, but we've organized, and this is a representative that might be able to contribute from our perspective. And that's a non-resident, non-tax, like property taxpayer, but they have their own perspective. They have employees, right, that don't live here. They have minorities that work for them that don't live here. But those are all part of this. All those individuals and entities are part of the community.
So in the essence of time, I think we've really beaten this up, and it's almost 7, and really this is a really long meeting. So in the essence of time, there are 2 options. We either take a vote on this particular topic and end it here, or we continue our discussion on this topic and table it for next time. And Sharon, I'll let you decide what we should do.
I think it would be appropriate for the group to decide how you want to proceed. What I will say is we are not constrained by a date by which we need to get back to the village board. So if you would like to let this kind of roll around in your mind a bit more and think through some of the dialogue we've had and some of the feedback points that have been shared in the document that I sent out, you could certainly do that, and we could bring this back at the next meeting and pick back up. If you want to do a straw poll to kind of see where the group is, it's not a formal vote you'd be taking, but you could certainly do a straw poll to just see where people are on that discrete topic. You certainly can do that.
We just have a few members who have already dropped off because it's a little late. So I think
know a couple other folks who may have commitments at 7.
Yeah, so I think that we should just maybe talk about this in our next meeting. Just, I feel like we're beating it out and we haven't gotten to the next point. So, and how much more do we have left for as part of the ordinance?
We've got a few other pieces of feedback on organization and membership, rules and procedure, and then the name. My guess is that the name might garner some more in-depth discussion. So if you're thinking that maybe there's some aspects of this that you want to hold till the next meeting, might be a comfortable stopping point.
I think that's probably a good idea. Let's just stop with the ordinance, because there's one more thing that we want to bring up, and it might, take some time, Sharon, for you to go through it. So I really want to address that as well. So why don't we pick back up the ordinance, and then Sharon, do you want to talk about our in-person meetings and just give everybody an update on that?
I'd be glad to. So tracking Deputy's pre-meeting statements about our authority for conducting virtual meetings, that is temporary authority that's extended by the governor's emergency declaration in line with the Open Meetings Act. Absent that authority from the governor's emergency declaration or a similar one, we do not have legal authority to meet virtually, such as we are right now. Instead, we are required to meet in person. The governor has announced, it's been all over the news, that the earliest that Illinois would move into phase 5 of the Restore Illinois plan, which is the pandemic response and recovery plan for the state, is June 11th, based on the metrics that the state has identified. Certainly the data is trending toward meeting that time frame. I don't have a crystal ball, of course, but it seems that we're headed in that direction. So at the staff level, we are making preparations for the likely return of in-person meetings starting the week of June 14th. That is subject to action or inaction by the state, of course, so we won't know until we get there pretty much. But we think it is very likely that we will return to in-person meetings, which means that we would be meeting here physically in person at Village Hall. We are planning to make this available to residents by Zoom, and we're working through some hardware provisioning in some of our meeting rooms for that to make that happen. Emily, would you mind, I see Bob has rejoined as an attendee. Would you please promote him to panelist? Thank you. So when we return to in-person meetings, this group will no longer be able to participate by Zoom. You will be required to participate here at Village Hall. We do have a remote meeting attendance policy for the village's boards and commissions that allows remote participation under narrow circumstances to include your own personal illness or work-related travel that you may be participating in at the time of the meeting. So otherwise, if it's simply a matter of convenience or preference, our remote meetings policy does not accommodate that. So that's my long-winded way of saying after today, it's very likely that we may be meeting in person. We'll keep you up to speed on what that looks like. One thing that I would suggest that you think through is the group has been meeting twice per month. That's been out of preference, not by requirement. I would suggest thinking through as your subcommittees are getting more active, as we're returning to an in-person meeting where you may be coming from the office or have other commitments that are bookended with this meeting, think through whether you want to maintain the twice a month meeting schedule or whether you'd like to give a test run to the once a month meeting schedule. Once a month is more common among our boards and commissions. That's not to say that this group should or shouldn't do that, but it's just a point of reference. So again, we're working on provisioning of hardware to allow the public to still participate by Zoom so that that's an option, but the public could also attend in person once we do return to in-person meetings. So I'm happy to start.
Or do we also have a possibility of maybe starting the meetings at 5:15 or just a little bit later, since here you're working and you're like just switching to Zoom and now you have to actually get in your car and drive.
Yeah, the meeting time could certainly be adjusted. That would be a point of feedback that we look to the group for as well.
And I know with the 2 meetings in a month, initially the idea was that we meet for forum business one day, and then the next meeting would be where we were inviting people and addressing some of those kind of issues or topics. But now with the town halls coming up, with other initiatives we may be working on, it really is for us to think through if we need a second meeting in a month.
I would say that the ordinance discussion is one of the meatier topics that this group has had over the last year. For those who are newer to the group, this is the newer project for this group to be working on. And to Dipti's point, there was an intended break in the first and second meeting. As your subcommittees are getting engaged and getting active and reporting out, that may once a month may allow more time for those subcommittees to work. We very much appreciate the time that you each share with the community and with the village And we recognize that you have lives outside of participating on the Community Relations Forum. And so we appreciate your generosity with your time and want to be sure that we also don't take all of your free time unless you want to give us all of your free time.
If you want to just say yay or nay for once a month, I'm yay.
Seeing hands raised, so it sounds like once a month is kind of the preference moving forward. Okay. Do you have a preference? We had eyeballed the first and the third Wednesday of the month. Do you have a preference among the first or the third?
Maybe they could take a look at their schedule and get back to us and email us.
That's a good suggestion.
Okay. Good
And
suggestion.
for the good of the group too, we typically set a meeting schedule for the year. We can always add or subtract meetings. We can do that with 48 hours notice to add a meeting, and we can cancel a meeting at basically a moment's notice if needed. So if there's a month where you feel you would like to have a second meeting, that is a-okay. We can add another meeting as long as we have 48 hours notice. Or if you want to shift a date, if we realize, oh, this is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and that's just not a good time for anybody, we can flex.
Sounds good. Okay. All
So,
right.
okay, so we'll plan on once a month moving forward, it sounds like. And if you could get back to us with, if you have a preference between the first or the third Wednesday, and if you have thoughts on pushing back the start time a little bit, but otherwise we'll aggregate that feedback and send it to the group.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So our next meeting would be dependent on the feedback. We're not saying in the meantime, our next meeting is our July meeting.
It's up to you.
We probably should decide the next meeting though, so that everyone is, prepared for that time. So if it's
Yeah.
not,
Maybe we could do that through the email, because I have a lot to send to you guys still. If you guys, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just thinking out loud.
That's a good suggestion, Emily. If you have a preference, as we're thinking about what the cadence is moving forward, when you want to start that cadence.
yeah,
Our next meeting, if it was in 2 weeks, would be within the dates of, that we could still do it by Zoom?
Most likely not.
Or outside?
2 weeks from today would be the 16th.
Mhm.
We're anticipating that as early as the week of the 14th, which would be that week, we may return to in-person.
Got it. All right,
Again,
sorry.
I don't have a crystal ball and I'm not trying to be cryptic by any means. We just simply don't know what action the state will or won't take. I think we'll find out once they take it or don't take it.
Can I make another suggestion? The village board meets on the third Thursday of the month, is that right?
That's correct.
So if this committee had anything that we wanted to bring to the board for that month's meeting, it would be best for us to meet on the first Wednesday of the month so that there would be enough time to get it in the package for the village board meeting on the third Thursday of the month. Is that right?
If this group met, whether it was June 16th or whether this group met in the beginning of July, if you finished the discussion regarding the ordinance, that would give us time for a July village board meeting. One thing I will say is before we lock a date in our minds, then we'll check the board's calendar to see what we can get on their docket.
I'm just saying, going forward,
In
general, we come up with something at a committee meeting. If we do it the day before a board meeting, we'll wait until the next month's board meeting. If we do it 3 weeks before a board meeting, we may be able to get in on the board's agenda for that month's meeting.
I'm good with that.
Does that make sense? I mean, as far as arguing between whether the first or the third Wednesday of the month would be more beneficial.
I'm totally good with that. But anyways, please send in your suggestions to Emily if you have a specific recommendation, but I'm good with the first Wednesday of the month. I've got both of them on my calendar, so you just have to pick one.
I have to go catch my train. I just wanted to say a formal goodbye. But I will, Sharon's going to keep me up to date and I will email all of you. I just want to
Thank you,
let you
Emily.
guys know. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
And to your point, Margot, the ordinance is something that'll come back to the board. This group, unless you're working on something that is at the request of the board or otherwise a recommendation to the village board, this group, many of our committees and commissions, in fact, don't have that time frame that they need to work toward. That tends to be more applicable to the regulatory groups like the Plan Commission or the Zoning Board, where they're making a formal referral or recommendation to the village board on a specific topic. So I wouldn't constrain ourselves by that.
Okay, good to know. Shall we move into public comments then, if there are any?
There were none submitted by email during the meeting.
Okay,
Don't see anyone from the public raising their hand.
okay, great. So is there any other business we want to discuss? It's been a really long meeting. We try to keep it to about 6:15, so I'm just trying to wrap this up here. If there is no other business to discuss, and there were no public comments submitted by email, then may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I so move.
Second.
Excellent. May we have a roll call, please?
I'm just going to go in the order I see you on my screen. Chairperson Clark,
Yes.
Member Guzman,
Yes.
Member Scott,
Yes.
Member Bjork,
Yes.
Member Rubin,
Yes.
Member Flanagan,
Yes.
and Member Young.
Yes.
Okay, then we are adjourned.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Have a great night. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.